Welcome back to the Lois Banks Show. I'm your host, Lois Banks. Today we're going to interview my daughter, Ashley Banks. She is the youngest of the family, but she's grown up to be a beautiful young woman, and she's such a beautiful daughter to me. She's very respectful. She honors me, and we're going to be talking about her movie project. Ashley, thank you for coming to the Lois Banks Show.
Um, Thank you.
Well, I like to start off talking about something positive at the beginning of the program, at the top of the program. And I want everybody to see a book that I wrote. It's entitled Learn Your ABCs God's Way. I felt led to talk about this book that I wrote over 28 years ago for my children when they were really young. It was three of them at the time. And I wrote the book because I wanted my children to, have fun talking about the Lord in a creative way. I took the responsibility of talking about God with my children. I didn't make the church responsible for teaching my children about the Word of God. So I actually created a children's book myself. I started off with construction paper. And I can draw a little bit, so I drew, I illustrated what I wanted on each page, and the topic or the subject of the book is based on race relationships, children being introduced to other cultures around the world, other children, and so from the letter A all the way through the letter Z, I teach children around the world how to walk upright before God. And the children are in their cultural clothing. I wanted children around the world to learn how to love each other, how to accept each other's differences. And speaking of differences, I felt that it was important to teach my African American children the importance of race relation, because I know as a mother some of the challenges they're going to be going through, when they get outside in the world. How we live in the house is one way, but how the world deals with people of color is quite different. And I'm a Christian, but I'm a very realistic Christian, and I believed in telling my children the truth, and I wanted them to be prepared. I wanted my African American children to love all cultures, but at the same time, I wanted to hand them tools that they could use out in the world, in the workplace, in the church, so that when people came up against them because of the color of their skin, they wouldn't internalize it and become angry people, but they would know how to handle it because I had written down the tools in the book that I wrote for my children. So with that being said, I wanted to open up my heart and share what's inside of my heart with the world, as far as how I look at cultures and the love walk with God. And I believe that God created many cultures for a reason, because if we all look the same, it would be a very boring place. I mean, if you think about it, the trees, there's so many different types of trees, there's so many different types of flowers, there are so many different types of animals, and God is creative. He's a creative God. And I don't belittle cultures. I don't do that. And I don't ignore it. I don't ignore the creative part of God when it came to creating humanity. And I don't believe that any culture is better than the other. So, if somebody thinks that they're better than me, I'll let them know that they're not, in love. And I taught my children the same values. God is interested in you and all cultures as a person, and he's also interested in the intent of your heart. He, he's not just interested in your heart. He's interested in you as a whole person, the whole person, your culture, how he created you, and the inside of your heart. So I taught my children how to love all cultures. I also told my children that they could marry outside of their race just as long as the person they're marrying is a Christian, and that person outside of their race is strong enough to handle the evil and the wickedness that's going to come against interracial marriage, because everybody does not have the love of God in their heart, and people do have an issue with cultures mixing and intermarrying and so forth and so on. I remember when I was single, I dated outside of my race. I dated a Caucasian man. He was a minister of the gospel, and I remember going to a church that was predominantly white. It had some African American people in there, and everybody knew everybody. And I remember the Caucasian people, they were very upset that myself and this Caucasian man were dating. We were together. You ought to have seen the anger that came out of them. So there's some issues with racism inside of the church, and it needs to be dealt with. And then I remember taking this same gentleman to a black church where, people basically knew who I was, and it was the same reaction. The black people, they were mad. They didn't want to see me with, a Caucasian man. So, these are so-called people who are supposed to be in a church. And I'm going to tell you, you're not going to get to heaven with hatred in your heart. And it's a lot of going on in the world. It's been going on for a long time. So I felt that it was so important to sit down and write a book to deal with the real, because I'm a realist, to deal with the real and to hand my children tools to handle what's going on out in the world. Now, many of you already know that I'm a licensed nurse by trade. And, in my career as a nurse, I've dealt with a whole lot of craziness just because, number one, I'm a Christian. Number two, I'm black. So, but my skin is thick. My heart is soft for the Lord, but I'm not putting up with no foolishness. When people go too far, I do let them know in a nice professional way to back up. So, you most definitely have to hand tools to your children and teach them, how to handle things and how to walk in love and forgiveness so they don't grow up to be angry people. So I'm just going to read a couple of things that all of my children stated on the back of my book regarding race relations, and I thought that was very important. My oldest son, Charlton, says, racism is the oldest form of discrimination, whether it's comparing Africans to Caucasians or Catholics to Protestants. It's always about comparing differences. So maybe it's time we embrace our similarities. My oldest daughter, Candace, states, racism is one of the world's most disrespectful and hurtful ways people can treat each other. When God created mankind, hate and disrespect weren't in the blueprint. Our skin color may be different, but our Creator is the same. My youngest son, Michael, states, the world would be a better place if racism didn't live in the hearts of people. Without racism, God's plan for mankind would become a reality. And my daughter, who's in the studio with me today, Ashley, wrote, everyone needs to be loving and caring towards each other. People aren't supposed to be mean toward one another just because God decided to use different skin tones. Now, I'm going to share what I wrote on the back of the book. I feel that racism is one of the oldest forms of evil. As a human, I can't ignore that it exists on the earth, churches, workplace, and schools. God has never been a part of such an evil plan for mankind. His message is love and forgiveness. If you claim that you belong to God, then you should be in prayer daily for the salvation of souls, and you should be demonstrating God's love toward everyone and every culture. So now you've heard from me what's inside of my heart towards humanity, and I love everybody. I love all cultures. Even when people mistreat me, they're unkind, I'm still, praying for them. I'm fasting and praying for them because I know that that form of evil means that somebody is not connected to Christ in some form or fashion. So, and inside of this book, I also have a Jewish child and a Muslim child bowing their knees to Jesus and asking Jesus inside the heart. And I definitely want to make sure that I show you this picture and of that. And I didn't want to leave anybody out. I also made sure that my illustrator created illustrations of children that are very, very, very dark to the very, very light, because a lot of times inside of children's books, you don't see a lot of children with dark skin represented inside the book. I have children who are from Indian heritage, Jewish children in the book, African, Mexican, Asian. Every culture is represented inside of this children's book. So I wanted to make sure that I planted a seed of love, and I had an open and honest dialogue about what's inside of my heart for humanity. And often I talk about it openly because it's not talked about in the church like they're supposed to. My ministry is not connected to a 501c3, so I can openly share what's on the heart of God, and what he puts in my heart to share for humanity. So, my focus is not on money either. I go to work as a nurse, and I pay for my own ministry. So, I don't have any issues with telling the truth in love. So I wanted to make sure I shared that information with you. And if you want to go out and purchase any of my books, you can go out to publishergraphics.com and just type in my name and my books will come up. And then I have another book entitled Walking with God. This book is being made into a movie. I'm like 3/4 done with the movie. My soundtrack will be completed at the end of May. I'm very excited about that. And this particular book talks about my personal walk with God, how God answers my prayers, the miracles that have happened in my life within my 30 years of walking with God. And I'm just being obedient. Whatever it is God is asking me to do, I am doing it for the kingdom of Christ. I'm trying to win as many souls to God as I can, and without soliciting any kind of money or begging people for money, and always telling the truth in love. So that's it for the top of the hour. I'm going to turn this interview over now to my daughter, Ashley Banks. Now, Ashley, I'm going to ask you first. I want to ask you, how did you come up with an idea to create a movie?
Well, it was a process. I had to figure out what I wanted in life first. I graduated medical assistance and did my externship, and after that, it just seemed like I still wasn't happy in my career, and I didn't want to work for anybody else, and I wanted to work for myself. So I started being an assistant to people in the film industry, and I started to like it, and I thought that I could do the same. And I've always been creative, so I just thought that I could do something like that as well. So I was just praying, and I was just saying to God, like, I want to come up with a really good movie that can teach people as well. And I wanted to give Tyler Perry his run for his money. So the next day, I drummed about the movie that I wanted to make. And I just sat on it for like at least 3 weeks until I said something to you and you thought it was an excellent movie.
Okay, now I want to go back to the part where you talked to God about what you wanted to do, how He answered you, and then how you sat on it for 3 weeks. Can you tell the viewing audience why did you sit on it?
Because it's really hard for people to even want to help you personally, and I just felt like I didn't really have it in me, but at the same time I did. So when I finally just said I want to do this is what I want to do, then that's when I came to you and I asked for help.
Okay, great. Now, did you ask God to include me in helping you, or how did that work? What made you feel like it was, you felt led to come to me and share your dream with me?
Because you're my mom, and you have your own network, and you know about the industry, and you helped me in the industry in a lot of different areas, so it was only right to come to you.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, when you opened up your heart and you shared the dream, and God actually gave you a dream and gave you the beginning of the movie to the middle of the movie to the end of the movie, exactly what He wanted, the topic for that movie. I was just like outdone. I mean, God gave you details, and the details are going to touch so many different lives, and it's something that people are actually going through right now. In their lives, in their personal lives, and it needs to be addressed. I believe that we're in a time, Ashley, where because the church is not addressing issues that are going on, and they're skirting around stuff that's really happening, with people, God is raising up people who will take on the challenge of, talking about certain topics,
Right.
to help people get delivered and set free from that and get healed from that. Because the movie that God gave you, my goodness, I mean, I was like so outdone. And then when you asked me to help you, and I knew it came from God, I knew that we had to, put our best foot forward and move forward, with the movie idea.
Right.
Now, I introduced you to Mindy, and she's the CEO of Motor City Films. And immediately I started searching for a film production company here in Michigan that could handle this project that God gave you. Talk a little bit about that meeting and how you felt after the meeting.
Well, I really liked her because she was she wasn't hesitant, and she was open minded, and I liked that about her, and I just felt like we were connected. And she was talking about a lot of the movies that she helped and the scenes that she did, and I just felt like that was a good situation for me because she's also a woman that's doing it, and she's dominant in the industry, and I want something like that to help me as well.
Okay, great. Yes, Mindy, she understood your topic. She understood what you wanted to do, and she's a go-getter. And she definitely said she was going to make sure your film is completed in 2019. And I know we don't want to we don't want to give away too much of the movie project, but do you feel comfortable giving people the title of your movie, or do you want to wait on that?
It's called Deacon's Child.
Okay. Yeah, so God is going to be talking to a lot of people through this film. Now, Ashley, this is your first movie project. Do You see your on other movies in the future?
Yes, I actually wanted to start working on my resume because I want to be a director and I want to go to Atlanta and also LA and be in the film industry.
Great, great, great. So now, as you stepped forward in the dream or the assignment that God gave you, how did that make you feel inside?
It made me feel like I can actually do something that I like, because everything else in my life, it feels like nothing. It doesn't feel like I have a purpose. It just feels like I'm getting up every day to just make money and it's nothing that I want to do. It's not even satisfying. But it makes me feel whole, and it makes me feel like this is what I was called to do.
Beautiful, beautiful. And for all of you parents out there who are praying over your children, don't stop praying for them, because it's my prayer as a mother when I'm talking to God that, all of my children find their purpose. I wanted God to speak to my children himself. As parents, we can point out gifts and talents in our children. We can do that, but it's different when God speaks to your children. When God speaks to your children and he gives them a plan, that plan is always connected with a purpose. And now I consider, I'm doing a lot now, but I considered myself a late bloomer, because I remember when I was growing up, somebody spoke negative words into my life, and it took God to speak positive words back into my spirit, so that I can actually believe that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And now, I believe I can do anything. Whatever it is God is asking me to do, I could do. So, Ashley, do you know of some other topics that you want to focus in on with the other movies, or have you not gotten that far?
I want to do all types of movies, anything that's gonna get my name out there. I wanna be everywhere. I also want to do plays. I like film a lot, so I feel like this is exactly where I want to be in.
What other areas are you creative in? Do you want to talk?
Comedy. I'm
Okay.
really funny, and I would like to work on a lot of comedy shows as well.
So do you see yourself creating a movie that's just really funny, that people are just going to really enjoy and have a good time?
Yes, but all kinds of movies, like anything drama, action, comedy. I'm gonna be putting my name towards everywhere.
Okay, great, great, great. So, I know in 2019, we're gonna, after my movie gets completed, we're gonna go directly into your movie, and you want to talk about possibly, or maybe you could come back on the show and give an open cast call
Yes,
for people who are viewing in now, to give the city of Detroit an opportunity to come out
yes.
and be an extra in your movie, and give somebody an experience with being, on a film. And I know there's a lot of professional actors out there as well, who would be willing to come participate on your project, to do something really, really great. And that'd be great. So we'll definitely have you come back at a later date
Okay.
and do that. Now, I want to go back just a little bit and talk about that dream you had. When you prayed, do you really know that God hears you when you pray? And
Yes.
how did you react when God gave you that dream of exactly what he wants you to do in film?
Well, he always gives me dreams. I've been having dreams since I was a little girl. So I knew that it came exactly from God, because I prayed it. I prayed. I wanted to have something in a movie that was going to help me in my career, and that's what I dreamt about. And it was really deep, and it felt like it could teach people about situations in the church. I have a lot of people in my life that's gone through the situation as well. So I talked to them as well to let them know, like, this is what I'm working on the movie about. And they was like, they appreciated everything that I had to say, because I didn't want it to seem like I'm basing it off of what they experienced. But I'm just letting everybody know, like, you can put, a stop to it, or, what I'm saying, just watch out for things that's going on with, children and stuff.
In the church, exactly.
In the church, yes.
Exactly. So you just stated that God has been talking to you since you were a little girl.
Yes.
In dreams. Now that's something I know for a fact. As a matter of fact, when you were a little girl, first of all, let me tell the television audience, when I was pregnant and carrying you, I remember a man of God called me forward in church, and he said, that baby you're carrying is in the office of a prophet. It's going to have prophetic gifts, and God's going to give me instructions on how to nurture that gift. And, you, my goodness, as soon as you could start talking, you were talking prophetically. I know there was a special gift inside of you. And then when you would have dreams as a young girl, a little girl, you would have dreams, and those dreams would happen. So I learned that when God speaks to you in a dream, when you were little, to write it down and watch how God manifests those dreams. When you were growing up and you had that gift, how did that make you feel? Did you get used to that gift, or because you're a young woman now, you're a grown adult now? So talk about how you adjusted to that gift that God has placed in you, where he talks to you in your dream.
Okay, so it was really nothing to adjust to, because it was normal for me. So anytime, I didn't even think that it was anything wrong with it, because most of the time when I dreamt about something, I just talked about it, and either somebody would get really freaked out because they would be like, how do you know this, or how do you know what's going on, or something like that. I don't. I just dream about it and it happens. So I always talk to you about what I was going through, or the dreams that was coming to me and stuff like that. And I could actually see, so I don't have to dream about it. I could just see in a vision as well, with something that happened. And I just tell you, and a lot of times when I was young, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't even know that was happening. I was just telling you what was going on, and you guys would know exactly what I was talking about. I had no idea, but I was just telling you. Yeah.
And then as you could understand, I would share information that, your mom has the same gift. I have the same gift. My mom had the same gift, where God would talk to her in visions and dreams, and so did your great grandmother. So God placed that gift in at least, 4 generations. We have that gift where God is talking to us in visions and in dreams, which is great, because that's a great way for God to lead and guide us in our life. And the other thing about the gift is, I try to have, like, all of my children, just be normal. Don't be looking all odd and weird. And, with the gift, you just want to blend in and, but still function, in your gift. Well, Ashley Banks, has been a blessing having you on the Lois Banks Show. You're welcome. We're definitely going to have you come back. And when we have you come back, you're going to let people know where they can come out and be a part of the audition for the movie project.
Okay.
That'd be great. And I just want the TV audience to listen out for a movie coming out this year by Ashley Banks. And thank you so much for coming to the Lois Banks Show.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Come back again.